Welcome back into Rounding Third Podcast. I'm Nick. We got Harrison and Sean. How are we doing again today, boys?
Good, boys.
Good, fellas. Good to be back.
Awesome. Before we get started, go to our Facebook page and follow, comment on anything that we put on there. Go to our YouTube page and subscribe there, and you can see when we go live. All right, leading off tonight, I know we're not necessarily a Red Sox podcast, but we all have New England ties. We're going to talk about the Trevor Story signing right off the top here. He signed with the Sox for 6 years, $140 million. Couple questions here. Where does he play? What does it mean for Xander Bogaerts? And is Chaim going to re-sign X endeavors? Go.
That's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he plays second off the bat. I think he's for 2021 or 2022. We're in 2022 now. Shit. For 2022, he's your second baseman. I think ideally you still bring back Xander. You find a way to work out an extension with Devers, and then those three are your middle infield, your third baseman for the next 5 years. But I also think that gives you some insurance because, like, if Xander goes out and just gets like a crazy offer, like sets the market for shortstops next year, he opts out, yada yada. Like, it's pretty good backup to having Trevor Story to just slide right over to shortstop. And I think there was some things I was reading that, like, the Red Sox, I don't know if they were concerned about the elbow, but there was some arm strength, durability things with Story, and if second base is going to extend this guy's career for another few years, and you get 6 years of that bat in this lineup at Fenway, to me that's ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing with I just lost my train of thought. Okay, go, Harrison. Sorry.
Well, I think we were even texting about it over the weekend that second base was still a hole for the Red Sox. They didn't have that second baseman spot. Arroyo did a nice job, kind of in a pinch, but the Red Sox haven't really had a kind of a true second baseman, rock solid second baseman since Pedroia probably. They've had a couple of guys roll in and out of there, but is Story a second baseman? Maybe for this year he is, but signing him, 6 years, $140 million, that's a pretty big commitment for the Red Sox to make. I feel like this is Chaim, kind of hedging his bets. If Xander does, opt out and go, you've got a shortstop, and now you just go find a second baseman again. If Xander stays, then you've got some flexibility. You could move somebody to third, somebody plays short, Devers could play first. You've got flexibility. But in my mind, given the contract that Story signed, I think the Red Sox are all in on Trevor Story and Rafael Devers, and they're kind of hedging their bets with Xander. If he stays, great. If he goes, okay, they've got a plan B. But the stories coming out today are that Xander Bogaerts was one of the ones heavily recruiting Trevor Story. So, maybe Xander is looking around going, okay, maybe I'm going to stick around now because it's worth sticking around for. But he's going to want to get paid.
This is what I was going to say. That the early reports was saying that Trevor Story he was willing to have a temporary position. He didn't want to stay at second base for the rest of his career or whatever. Whether that's changed or not, that it's whatever. Whatever.
My guess, that's all positioning for money. Shortstops make more money than second base. Like, this is shortstop money that he got from the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So I think that's mainly what I'd rather do shortstop over second base. He's a great second baseman, right? No doubt about that. But I think that's more positioning about money than anything else.
Yeah.
Because this was true. Like $140 million was that shortstop money.
Yeah. So here's the shortstop market for next year. Right? Okay, that's awesome. Shortstop market for next year. Ready? Tim Anderson, club option. Elvis Andrus, club option. Xander Bogaerts can opt out. Then you got Didi Gregorius, Dansby Swanson, and Trey Turner. Huh. So Trey Turner might set the bar there.
Yep.
Nah, see, maybe we'll see. That could be a fun conversation to have next year. To me, if you tell me if I'm a GM running a team that needs a shortstop and all of those guys are on the market, now we know some of those teams are going to retain their club options. But let's just say they all hit the market. Like, Xander's the guy I'm going for pretty easily.
Yeah.
So if I'm Xander, I'm opting out, but I'm not taking the Red Sox off the list. I'm opting out so I can get the most money. But,
Right.
you know, if the Sox are willing to at least, they don't have to give me the highest offer. Now, what maybe they do for Xander. I don't know. But, you know, maybe he's sitting there thinking, you know, if the Sox just come somewhere close, like, he'll stay. We'll see. I mean, that'd be interesting.
Do you
Yeah,
think
what's-
Bloom play? Oh, go.
What's
go ahead.
interesting too is Xander. I mean, Xander's only 29 years old. You
Well,
I
so
feel like he's
Story.
been with the Red Sox forever because, you know, he was the one we were hearing about when he was basically a teenager coming up through the ranks. You know,
Right.
kind of like back in the days of Hanley Ramirez when he was a member of the Red Sox
Mhm.
from the time he was like 16. You know, Xander, it feels like has been around a long, long time. He's only 29. He's only a year older than Trey Turner. You know, Trey Turner's 28. I think you've got a couple of guys. You know, what concerns me about a guy like Xander is that, you know, if he were to opt out next year, after the Yankees whiffed so badly this year on the free agency pool, I just have a bad feeling he ends up in pinstripes, because they're going to absolutely break the bank to secure a shortstop, and also kind of, you know, stick a dagger in the Red Sox so they're at it. So it kind of kill two birds with one stone with that approach.
Ugh,
Yeah,
I'm nauseous.
I can see that 100%, Harrison. Like, I see that very clearly. You know, Story's only 29 too. They're born like a month
Yeah.
apart, or a couple months apart. I mean, you find a way to lock Xander up. That's your middle infield for the next 6, maybe longer, if you can find a way to extend Story a little bit into his, you know, late 30s. I mean, that's a legitimate middle infield offensively, let alone Story's defensive ability. And Xander's, you know, I think Xander's fine. Do I think he's the best defensive shortstop in the game? No. But he's more than serviceable, right? More
Absolutely.
than serviceable. And he's gotten better. As he's gotten older, he's gotten more range. He's gotten more consistent. I mean, this is a guy that plays a more than serviceable shortstop defensively with potentially a Gold Glove second baseman you're putting next to him. And having that locked up for 6, 7, 8 years is way too good. Like, I need that to happen now. Like, I need to talk that into existence because, I mean, that would be, and then you find a way to keep Devers at one of the corners. And if you're worried about Devers defensively and maybe he's not gotten better the way you want him to get better the past couple of years, you know, in first base, I mean, it's certainly no walk in the park, but it's a guy, I feel like a guy like Devers could do. That's all footwork. But look at the hands, we know
But
that.
he has been better defensively, much better defensively in the last
But
couple
has
of
he
years.
though? But if we look at has he though?
You look at his rookie year and his second year, dude, it was brutal. He was tough to watch at third base.
Well,
he's gotten better.
He's never been a great third baseman.
No.
He's always had decent feet. He's got really like iron hands. He doesn't handle anything cleanly. But I think, I mean, kind of like Sean was saying, if you're telling me for the next 5 or 6 years you could have a defensive core of Devers, Bogarts, and Trevor Story, I mean, you can figure out where the hell they're going to play.
Right.
I think the Red Sox are going to be okay with that core. I mean, you're talking about Trevor Story at the end of that contract's only 35. Bogarts, you know, you sign him to another 5 or 6 year deal. Who's 35, 36. You know, you got Devers, who's a few years younger than those guys even. And next thing you know, you've got a core that you're getting all their prime years out of. And the defensive shuffling, you can adapt as their games change. But I think Devers projects long term as a first baseman. I think Xander projects long term as a third baseman. Story's got the right build and foot speed for shortstop, and you find a second baseman down the road, or you develop one. Maybe now that gives the Sox a chance to actually develop somebody and bring him up through the system. And you know, if you've got those 3 guys filling those 4 positions, you can have a bit of a hole in the 4th position while you develop somebody.
So with the Red Sox
Agreed.
not signing an outfielder, you know, like, so now we have JBJ probably starting.
That scares me.
Does Christian Arroyo play? Does Christian Arroyo play the Brock Holt role on the team?
Let me just put a bow on this. Devers talk real quick, Nick. So Devers was a rookie in 2017. Now, granted, it was only 507 innings, okay? But he had 14 errors, which came to a .906 fielding percentage. And then 2018 was really a full year. He had a little over 1,000 innings at third base, and he had 24 errors, which is a .926 fielding percentage. 2019, he had 1,300 innings, and he had 22 errors. So a .949 fielding percentage. 2020 was the shortened season, so whatever. And then last year, 22 errors and a little over 1,300. So it's not getting that much better. They're really, I mean, the numbers are really not that much better.
But they were better.
I think
every number you just said to me was better each year.
No, it wasn't. It went from 14 to 24 to 22 to 22.
Yeah, but in more chances.
Fielding percentage
the
of
fielding
906
percentage was
to 920. 906 to 920. So that's your biggest jump. 906 to 926.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and then another 20% in 19. And then he's there. That's just where he is. That's just where it's
Yeah,
not
then maybe that's
really
his
better in the 2
defensive
years.
peak. But I mean, whatever. I mean, he's not a liability at third base defensively, is
Well,
what I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but I think he is. I mean, he literally in 2020 he was rated the worst third baseman in baseball defensively. He was the worst. He had a -6 zone rating. I mean, the guy actually he hurts the team by being at third base. Is he the worst third baseman you ever seen in your whole life? No. But in 2020 he was the worst, and in 2021 he was second to worst defensively rated. Now, did he make a bunch of errors? No, but he gets to nothing. I mean, when a ball is hit his way, if it's not one step left or right, he's not even getting to it. So I mean, if he hit it right at him, will he field it? Sure, he'll field it most of the time, but he's got 0 range and 0 foot speed. But with his bat and his ability, you could easily
Doesn't
coach up
matter.
to your first baseman and go find a third
But
baseman.
you don't need foot speed. I agree. You don't need foot speed at first base. It's not about foot speed. It's about
No.
footwork. It's just about. I mean, that's where I feel like. Remember, years ago we were trying to force Hanley into first base, and we're just like, I don't like. It was okay, but like it was by no means I would call that a success. Hanley couldn't figure out the footwork. That was like an abomination to watch at times. And
Yeah,
I
it was
played
horrible.
nothing higher than high school first base, and I can tell you the footwork was embarrassing to watch.
Yep.
But Devers, I mean, having experience at third base, foot speed, no, not great. But understanding how to work a base, like I can't imagine Devers struggles with it that much.
And I think
they
the
do.
one thing with Devers that everybody's always said is how hard he works. He's definitely improved defensively. He's still not good defensively, but he has improved.
Yeah.
But the kid works. Hanley Ramirez, you can't teach or coach a guy like that. He wasn't going to learn a new trick because he didn't want to. Whereas a guy like Devers is actually going to spend the time to learn it and figure it out. I think he'd actually end up being a pretty good first baseman. He's got good hands. He just doesn't have any range. He's got 0 range. I mean, if he can't fall down and reach it, he's not getting it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, and like, who knows? Like, we might even. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Story at third base for like a spot start here or there, possibly.
Well, I
You know,
agree.
like-
But,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I agree. I agree, but I mean, you
got-
still got. I mean,
yeah.
Arroyo can play a lot of the infield positions too. So you gotta,
Right.
you got to make sure you're keeping him happy in a sense of giving him his innings and his, sporadic but somewhat rotational basis at bats. And I think that's where he can spell you. Arroyo can play second. Arroyo can play first. Arroyo can play really any infield position. We've seen him play.
Okay.
And they're saying in spring training they're going to start putting, Bobby Dahlbeck, getting him some outfield innings. I have no idea. I mean, I'd love to see that, but I have no idea how that's going to work. But
I think that's because they want to get Cassis up here 100%. I think that's like their ultimate goal. Like that was when like they wanted to bring Mookie up, but Pedroia was at second base. So they're like, hey, let's try him in the outfield. They put Mookie in there like, oh yeah, like this guy's an athlete. He's going to figure it out. Like, I mean, I think Dahlbeck could. I mean, we'll see. It's spring training. Throw him out there and see what he can do.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I still think this. Go ahead, Harris.
No, finish your thought.
I was just going to say, and I still think the Sox have plenty of trade pieces. I know we were texting earlier today.
Yeah.
I still think the Sox have trade pieces. I wouldn't be completely shocked, maybe a little surprised this late in it, but, not completely shocked if they go out and make a move for another power bat. One thing that I was seeing on Twitter, Lou Merloni was saying it, so I'm not going to take credit for it, certainly, but, Will Myers. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. Will Myers, right-handed bat, still a young kid. I mean, we've been hearing that Will Myers name for a long time when he was started in Tampa. He's still a young kid.
Which is crazy.
I mean, that's someone who my fear is, I think to what you guys said earlier, but my fear is Jackie Bradley Jr. being an everyday starter. Now, with that being said, I'm going to finish my thought and give it to you guys in a second. With that being said, adding Trevor Story to your lineup kind of makes Jackie in the 9-hole somewhat
palatable.
Worth the trade-off.
Yeah.
Because he will be like, think about the runs that he's going to be saving in that big right field that we all know is not easy to play.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I get it, but like there's going to be times throughout the year where you're just like, good Lord, Jackie, I don't want to see him at the plate.
Yeah.
But maybe you just deal with it. Maybe you just deal with it. I don't know. We'll see.
No, and when you look at the Red Sox top prospects, you've got Cassis at first base, obviously the top, but behind him you've got Meyer and York, who are both guys in A ball level, moving to Double A level, probably a year or two out. But you've got in your top 5 prospects, 4 of those guys are infielders. So you've
Right.
got some potential talent on the horizon that needs a couple of years to get there. So say Xander does opt out, maybe you speed somebody up and give him a shot, or maybe you find a bridge so one of those guys is ready. I mean, I honestly think this gives the Red Sox kind of flexibility in those in the infield positions for several years, so they can figure out what they can do.
Yeah,
it does. I'll tell you, I've always leaned a little, and I know the Red Sox going back to Theo, and then now with Heim and all the guys in between, aside from Dombrowski, is really the only outlier. Like, the Red Sox philosophy for really my entire life has always been like, they really value the farm system, and they value these young kids that they either trade for or they draft or they sign internationally, and then they build them up and they become Red Sox players, right? Like, I don't know how else to say it. And they value that. I've always been a little bit more of like, a proven player to me is always more valuable than like an unknown commodity with untapped potential. And I'm not saying you need to trade an entire farm system away. By no means am I saying that. But like, I would be a little bit more willing to part with a high A or a single A player that has high potential for like a proven commodity that like, can produce at the major league level, and I don't know. And it's always a balance that you have to strike. And I get that, but like, I hope the Red Sox can look at the situation they're in. Trevor Story's here for at least 6 years. I mean, that's kind of what I mean. That's 6 years, $140 million. I mean, I know there's a couple of opt-outs in there, but in a perfect world, things go well, he's here for 6 at least. If you can find a way to get Xander, you have 7, let's call it 7 or 8 years of middle infield prime. To me, that makes a guy like Marcelo Mayer insanely valuable.
Oh yeah.
He might go on to be a great player, but what good is that if he's 23 playing at AAA?
But I agree with that point too. Like, if you're gonna value your farm system and you bring them up on the big club and they end up like a Mookie Betts, you gotta pay them. They end up like a Rafael Devers, you gotta pay them. They end up like a Xander Bogaerts, pay them and keep them. Like, why bring them up, put them on the club, and then like just let them go at a free agency? Like, I don't understand that.
I get that too. But what I'm saying, I think that a balance needs to be stricken. I don't know the right way to say that, but a balance needs to happen. Thank you. Yes, exactly. A balance needs to happen here where you sit there and go, you know what? We drafted this kid, 3 overall or 4 overall, Marcelo Mayer, whatever it ended up being out of high school. We think this kid's got crazy talent. We think he's going to be a great shortstop in this league. You're probably right if everything pans out. But if a guy like Marcelo Mayer at high A or single A ball can bring you the likes of a guy like Will Myers, another power bat that can be in your outfield for the next 4 or 5 years, that is also going to tell Xander, hey, we want you here, so we just traded away your replacement because we want you. B, we just brought in an all-star level player that can help us win for the next 6 years. What about this? I mean, that tells Xander everything he needs to know about how the Red Sox feel about him. It's not just money. Absolutely. It's not just, we're going to give you $1 billion. Yeah.
Right.
Who knows? Who knows what they'll do? And maybe, I mean, I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room, but sometimes I get frustrated with them because it's just like why are we so hesitant to give away talent that might be great, but we don't even know they might not. I mean, how many baseball's the biggest dartboard. You might hit, you might not. Who knows?
The biggest factor I have with Xander Bogaerts is Scott Boras. He is biggest. He is the biggest, like, pardon the pun, X factor with how X is going to handle this whole situation. Because if Boras comes in and is like, "Hey man, I can get you 10 for 400. I can get you a Mike Trout contract." He's gone. See ya.
Yep.
Like,
no question.
I think Scott Boras is the underlying the X factor here for sure.
Well, and I think to go back to what we originally said, that's why the Red Sox went aggressively at Story in the end, because I think he is an
Absolutely.
insurance policy. If X flies,
Yeah.
then great, we'll slide Story back to shortstop, and we don't necessarily miss X. We'll just go find another second baseman.
Right.
I don't know if there's any. When you put Story and X side by side, I don't know that you'd notice the difference between the two of them in your lineup every day. I don't think there's a huge drop off one way or the other.
I think X.
I
think X at the plate is better than Story. He's more consistent.
I think with
but
a consistency, I agree.
Yeah,
Nick.
okay,
I
fair
agree
enough.
100%. Yeah.
Fair enough. At the end of the season, though, I mean, in terms of you're going to get slightly better D out of Story, you're going to get maybe slightly better offense out of Xander. Yes, is Xander more consistent? I would agree. Story is one of those guys. Reminds me like the old days of Brian Daubach. Brian Daubach would carry you for an entire month and then just disappear. Story is not quite that streaky,
I don't know.
but he's streaky.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if we're talking about that kind of streaky.
No, but he's streaky, but not that streaky. But X is out there every day, doing his thing.
It will be interesting with Story out of Colorado, though. That's a hitter's park. Fenway's a hitter's park too. He's gonna pepper the monster. He's gonna blast someone on a Lansdowne. I'm all for it, but it's half of his games are at Coors Field. I mean, let's just he's
you're absolutely right.
So,
but I actually was reading something today on his splits, home and away in his career. His away splits, no question, are a step and a half, if not 2 steps down from his home splits. But that's only because the guy hit like 440 at home. Like if he had an entire season, away from home, away from Coors Field an entire season, he would have batted like 280 something with only 23 dingers and about like 90 RBIs. If you get that from your second baseman, like please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like sign me up for that at second base.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So, and again, like you said, Nick, you add in the fact that it's Fenway, which is another hitter's park. Like, I don't think it's going to be as crazy, but I mean, you're going to see a drop off because it's not Colorado. But again, Nolan Arenado, great player. But Nolan Arenado was the same things with, what's going to happen in St. Louis when it's not Colorado? He did just fine. He's a professional hitter, real good ball player. He did fine. I think Story will do fine. Right. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that, and I think to the point you were getting to, Sean, there about the whole, do you ride the roller coaster of development players, or do you trade away those development players for known commodities? I think a guy like Chaim Bloom is probably going to go both directions. I think he's going to stockpile the minors. He may chance it on a few, and he may spin off a few because he's going to want it both ways. That's just who he is.
And I think that's the perfect balance to strike. I think that's what you need to do. I think the idea of trading away this young, potentially really good players that you drafted and developed is about bringing back also young players that are proven commodities. So you're not losing 10 years of Mayer for 2 years of Miguel Cabrera at the end of his career. Like those are the trade-offs that you can't have. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But if you're, and I'm just using Marcelo Mayer because he's one of the top prospects. If Marcelo Mayer goes and you bring back Will Myers, like to me, I'd take that trade. Now, if Will Myers doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out in Boston and then ends up being a bad trade. But at the time of the trade, to me, that's worth doing. That's a proven commodity.
Yeah.
I just think that's the balance you need to strike. But
I honestly thought after Freeman signed, Castellanos signed, and Soler signed, I was like, the Sox aren't getting Story. I was already like towel in. I was like, we're not doing anything. Bloom's gonna stay with a small market in a big market town. And then the reports like started heating up, and I'm like, let's go. And then they dropped. But yeah, I was like, wow. I was convinced that he wasn't coming, but I'm glad he did.
I feel like, and I feel like in all the craziness, he was almost like the guy people forgot about that was still out there. Like all the headlines were Freeman and Correa and blah blah blah. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, Trevor Story's still out there. What's he up to?
Yeah. I think it also goes to show you how respected and really liked a guy like Alex Cora is. They say that Bogarts and Cora are really the ones that were at the end really giving Trevor Story the phone call and recruiting him to Boston. And you hear players that played for him in Boston and then players in Houston when he was the bench coach, and then when he was the manager of Puerto Rico and the World Baseball Classic. people just love him. Like baseball players just love Alex Cora. And I don't think that can be understated when a guy like Trevor Story says that he wants to go to a place where he can win. Players feel like Alex Cora gives them a better chance to win than when they play elsewhere. And that matters. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's the final thing that might factor into a Xander Bogaerts. I'll tell you this much, just my final thought on Xander. If the Yankees keep a guy like Aaron Boone moving forward, they're not getting guys like Xander or Trevor Story. Aaron Boone stinks. Aaron Boone stinks as a manager. And he's proven it year in and year out.
He's so bad. We've talked about him so much here. If you're a player that prioritizes winning, I'm telling you, like he alone is going to deter people from going to the Yankees. Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to fifth inning here, where we got college update, top 10 college baseball update, and then we'll do a little fantasy minute here at the back side of this. So not a ton of movement in the top four. Ole Miss, Texas, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt actually just stay right where they are. They don't move at all. Tennessee is up 2 spots from 7, so they're number 5. Oregon State stays at 6. Florida State and Florida each moved up a spot, so they're 7 and 8. Oklahoma State and then Virginia jumped up from 19 to the top 10 here.
And then the big move out of the top 10 was Notre Dame falling from 6 to 12. They had a rough weekend.
Yeah.
It's funny. We were talking about last week, the kid in Texas, Ivan Melendez, who has the greatest nickname, the Hispanic Titanic.
Yeah.
And then that kid, Ben Joyce, that throws 103 for Tennessee, obviously to the Tennessee Volunteers. They call him the Volunteer Fireman. Again, a great nickname.
So great.
It's awesome. I mean, it's perfect. It fits perfectly. I'm mad at myself for not coming up with it. It's an awesome Volunteer Fireman.
So good.
And then the one thing I saw on Twitter, Ben Joyce obviously was either today's Monday. So it was either yesterday or Saturday. Had to have been Saturday. They were playing South Carolina. They're up like 10 zip or 11 zip. Ben Joyce comes in out of the pen and he's throwing like 103. And some guy, I don't even know the guy, but he tweeted it. He was like, there's 2 things you should never see in college. One's a 103 mile an hour fastball. The other one's a 7 a.m. class. And I was like, that's hilarious.
That is great.
What I found interesting about Ben Joyce is to find out that he's just now he's returning from Tommy John surgery. He missed last year to Tommy John.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either till we started talking about him. But he actually, this is his first season back from Tommy John. So
it's because no one's arm is made to throw 103 miles an hour. That's the issue. Right. Like, dude, your ligaments are not made to withstand that amount of force all the time.
But you think of the guys that threw at that velocity, guys like Joel Zumaya and Daniel Bard got up there for a little while velocity wise, and none of those guys make it long. They just don't. They either lose the control because it's so hard to maintain that, or their arms just flat out fall apart because that's a lot of torque to be throwing that hard. I mean, those guys just don't make it. And for a guy like Ben Joyce, who's in college already having had Tommy John surgery, I mean, that's gonna scare major league teams away from making a big commitment to him, knowing he's already been under the knife once and you really can't do it again.
But it might not. Because pitchers come back stronger after Tommy John surgery. And if he's already had it, then they might take the risk and be like, he's not going to need it again. So,
well, there's a shelf life to Tommy John, though. They generally give these guys, there's only so many years. This thing's probably going to hold up. But still, I mean,
you never know. He's not going to have to do it
boys,
after
I'm having a blood sugar moment, so I'm going to puff, and I'll be right back on in a couple minutes.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Damn diabetes. Sorry, boys.
It's all good.
It's that broken pancreas.
Yeah, right. It sucks, dude. I've been there before. It's the worst. He's chugging Gatorade trying to get back. But
I saw the Gatorade come out, and I'm like, he's either really thirsty or he's trying to pump up the sugar.
Well, that's what the buzzing was telling him that his blood sugar was low. But
I thought you guys were just texting back and forth.
Yeah, we always talk behind your back on the podcast. But yeah, just got the two
nice.
Yeah. But anyway,
Dick doesn't carry 2 phones. He's just got 2 touchscreen devices.
Yeah, 3. Like I have my phone and then my pump and then my blood sugar meter. It's ridiculous. Like,
man,
I can't tighten my belt enough. Like my pants just fall down. But anyways. So not a ton of movement. NC State dropped, I think, to like the 250th or something like that.
Boy,
I mean,
the
they're
minute we
way
talked
up.
about them, they just went off a cliff.
God,
like,
they're
whew.
stinking. They're stinking it up right now.
And
But
Tommy Tanks is having a miserable remainder of his season so far.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah. All right. So quick fantasy minute before we move on to our Elite Eight of the bracket. Our draft is going to be Thursday, March 24th at 7. So this Thursday at 7 o'clock. Couple things we talked about.
7?
7, yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, there's like 30 rounds or 25 rounds or something like that. So I was like, if we do it at 8, we're going to bed at midnight. So
Fair enough.
I was like, goodness gracious. So couple things we know. Chris Sale is stress fracture in his ribs, right? We don't know when he's coming back from there.
That's one of those. It's kind of day by day. They're going to shut him down for a little while, see how he feels,
Yeah.
and if they when they bring him back out there, if he still hurts, they're going to shut him down again. And it's one of those injuries that it just takes as long as it takes.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see where people draft Tatis too. Like,
yeah,
how high
he's
do
out
you
for-
take him? Yeah,
He's out for a few months. You're talking a wrist, which is not an easy one for a hitter to come back from. It's it's interesting, and then the other piece of it too is then you got a guy like Carlos Correa. What do you make of Correa going to Minnesota? Does that help him, hurt him?
I don't know who protects him in that lineup.
Nobody.
So to me, that was all about the fact it was only 3 years.
That's a weird contract.
Really
To
is.
me, that's all about I'm getting my money next time.
Yep.
Like, I'll set that because he expected this time. I think the law threw a big wrench into that for him.
Yep.
And I think he's like, you know what? I'm going to get what did he get over 3 years? Crazy money for 3 years.
105. He's getting
105,
35
yeah.
a year.
So 35 a year for 3 years. I'll get it from Minnesota. Maybe I won't get protected, but as we've talked about, that division is not good. So
to say the least.
he'll do what he does for 3 years in Minnesota. He'll reset the market again in 3 years. I think that's his plan because that's a weird 3 years is a weird contract for a guy his
It's
age. To sign,
strange.
I think.
Very.
So I think that's
Yeah.
what it is.
I
Well,
mean,
and to go-
who knows?
and to go
Getting
from Houston-
Urshela and Sanchez from the Yankees. I mean, not so much Sanchez, but
Right.
Urshela possibly helps the Twins. I mean, again, in that division, like, who are they going to play against? The Royals 20 times, the Guardians 20 times. The White Sox are really the only ones that are going to give them a fit.
And
So-
yeah, I mean, I think the White Sox are going to control that division for the entire time that Correa is there. But
Absolutely.
I look at it as, and I think the same thing. I look at the move of Freeman to LA. Also makes no sense to me why he would do that when he was so well situated where he was. But you look at a guy like Correa. He goes from Houston, perpetual, contenders every single year. They're in it. The ALCS. They've been in the ALCS 5 straight seasons. He goes to Minnesota. He's going from the top of the division, the top echelon of AL hierarchy, to a lower tier team that's missing a lot of pieces. Are they terrible? No, but they're not great.
No.
And for him, I agree with Sean. This was strictly he had a number in his mind he wanted to get each year. Minnesota offered it to him. 3 years is a weird contract. These guys take at least 2 years to get comfortable in a new place.
Right.
3 years is silly. You're going to get comfortable and split.
Yeah.
And for him, it was
absolutely.
he was looking for the money.
3 years is what you sign when you're at the end of your career and you're
Right.
chasing something. You
a
sign a
filler,
3-year
yeah.
deal somewhere. It's such a weird for a guy to be in his prime. Yeah, it's the 35 million to Ken's point. That's exactly what it is. And Harrison, I
Right.
think I agree with what you said. He had a number per year in mind, and it was around probably 35, 40 million. And it's weird. It's a weird contract, but I mean, we'll see. Maybe he proves us all wrong. Maybe he has a great year one and then signs an 8-year extension. I mean, who knows? But I
Right.
just found it a weird one to sign initially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
All right,
and you're
well-
Ken's 100% right. That was all about. There's an annual number he wanted to hit, and that got him there.
Yeah. And that might have been the only deal that got him 35 million a year.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So everywhere else was like, no. So yeah, I agree with you guys. Well,
But I
we
mean,
can cover
and-
that more.
You look at Trout. I mean, Trout's average annual value is just a little more than 35 million. So that puts Correa on an annual basis right behind Trout. Puts him ahead of Mookie Betts. Puts him in the number 2 spot contract wise.
Crazy.
And kind of on par with Scherzer, and maybe that was what was important to him. When you compare him to guys like Mookie and Trout, who are getting 365 million or 426 million, they're not the same.
Yeah.
But the 3-year contract is just weird.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, we can cover that a little bit more in a little bit, but yeah. So fantasy draft Thursday, 7 p.m. Don't take the players I want, or I'll kick you out of the league. I have the power for it. So just to give you fair warning. And it is completely random. I did not set the draft order, so if the three of us are picks 1, 2, and 3, please still play. But I don't think it will happen that way. But
No.
Oh, the odds on that happening, Nick. Now that you've spoken into existence,
now you said
they're
it.
going to
happen.
hate us.
yeah.
They're going to hate us.
Anyways,
Yep.
it's just for fun.
The fix is in.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to the 7th inning stretch here, which is the Elite 8 of our bracket here.
Let's do this.
So this is for a trip to the Final Four. Our first matchup here, Ken Griffey Jr. against Teddy Ballgame. And it's Teddy Ballgame.
Yep.
It's Ted Williams
is.
over Griffey. I mean,
It is.
yeah, it just is. Like
It
we
is.
love
I mean,
Griffey,
for my money,
but
I didn't get to see the guy play, so take it for what it is. But I mean, I've said it very open. He's the best hitter of all time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I have no doubt.
I believe that. Homers, that's fine. That's fine. I think he's the best hitter of all time.
Yeah.
I love Griffey. I love everything that Griffey brought, but it's Ted.
Griffey defined an era of baseball, but Ted Williams defined baseball. Like the science of hitting, all that was basically done by Ted Williams. And what's scary is that you look at his stats, and the guy missed 3 of his peak seasons to the friggin' military.
Yeah.
Like his numbers would be up. He'd probably be 2nd or 3rd all time in home runs. I mean, he would be way up there if he hadn't have given 3 years to the war.
Yeah, I mean, but it's it's unfair because you say that about a lot of the other guys too.
Sure.
So I mean, you
Right.
gotta.
That's true.
So just to stick with the things that he did do and not what he could have or might have done. Still remarkable.
I think
Just
the
insane.
whole telling moment, honestly, was like that the All-Star game we were talking about last week when he came out on the golf cart, sat in the chair at the pitcher's mound, and every hitter, the all-time century team and the All-Stars were all trying to get up and shake his hand. And it was like that tells so much about the type of guy he was, first of all, and the type of player he was. I mean, the Jimmy Fund doesn't start or happen without Ted Williams.
Right.
Like, that's a huge factor. Like, he's not just affecting baseball, he's affecting his community's lives. I mean, in a huge way. Like, the Jimmy Fund, the amount of money they make every year, like, that's Ted Williams.
Yeah, you want to understand the impact the guy had on the game when you have a moment like the 99 All-Star game where every player literally stopped what they were doing and ran to get as close to him as they could, even just to say hi and, touch his arm as he drove by. There's probably 2 or 3 other players in all of baseball history that get that kind of response in a moment like that. And Ted Williams is probably the number one guy on that list.
Absolutely.
And funny question from Ken, would Williams beat Ruth? Absolutely. Williams beats Ruth.
I think so.
Absolutely.
I mean, we like to think that, like, I think Ted Williams would be able to make an adjustment and hit in today's game where Babe Ruth couldn't. If you've ever seen clips of Babe Ruth swing, it is terrible. He has such a huge hitch. He's way off balance. Like, it's not a pretty swing.
When a guy's throwing 82, you can get away with that. When a guy's throwing, 95 with 3 breaking pitches, there's not a chance in hell that you're going to make much contact.
A slider that breaks 1.5 feet in the last 5 feet. Like, it's not happening. I'm sorry. Like I said, I think Williams can make that adjustment and Ruth couldn't, for sure.
And just for those of you scoring at home, mainly Ken, Ted Williams does have Ken Griffey Jr. on the WAR stat, just to bring that up.
Ken loves his WAR. Goes right to WAR when he's
all
talking
about WAR. I've never met
player
somebody
comparison.
so obsessed with WAR.
I know.
Ken is all about WAR.
We're like, easy, Ken. Enough with the WAR.
Especially when he didn't even know what it was.
That's why this show is sponsored by WAR, so I could bring up the ratings and show everybody what that means.
It's so great. But yeah. All right. So Ted Williams makes our first appearance in the Final Four there.
82 miles an hour. You talking about my fastball, Ken?
All right. And then
that might also be true.
Yeah. So our next matchup in the Elite Eight here is Willie Mays against Stan Musial, and I bet you guys know who we picked.
Stan the man.
Yep, 100%.
The Musial suspects were out
It's Willie Mays, and
Yeah,
I mean,
in a landslide.
Yeah, I mean, like we said last week, like 5 tool player, probably the first one ever to have all 5 tools at the level that he did. Is just incredible. So yeah, it's Willie Mays.
And Willie, and it's worth mentioning, I think we've mentioned it once or two times before, but Willie Mays didn't come along that much after Jackie Robinson, right? I mean, to do what he did at the level he did it at for as long as he did it at, and still having to deal with, let's call it, the bullshit that he had to deal with on a regular basis.
Right.
Crazy impressive. Just crazy impressive.
Absolutely. And like we said before, like I know we just talked about not counting the war against, but like everybody during that era went to war for 1, 2, 3 years, and he could have passed Babe Ruth in that time for home runs. So I mean, that's just another notch in his cap. That
the hard part is like most of these guys missed 1 year, like Mays missed 1 year. A bunch of other guys missed 1 year. Ted Williams missed 3 because he was friggin' flying planes. He had the longest. He was the longest player out because he actually, when he was supposed to get out after his second year, he went back.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy what he gave up in his career to go fight. Where a lot of these guys did their 1 year and came home.
It comes back and hits 406.
That's the scary part. Could you imagine what he would have done? I mean, I know we don't want to do that, but could you imagine what he would have done for 3 more seasons?
No.
If he came back hitting 406 after 3 years off,
nuts.
He might have hit 500.
Of all things, that might be the most bananas point. Like, he didn't swing a bat at a live baseball in 3 years, and then came back to the major league level and hit 406. That is insane.
Yeah. Red Sox weren't good then. That even makes it even more of an argument for Williams because no one could protect him.
Right.
Like,
they didn't have to pitch to him. The guy still hit.
It's crazy. But yeah, so we got Ted Williams and Willie Mays on that side of our bracket. We move over to the top right where we got Hank Aaron versus the Rocket here. Interesting matchup here. But we went with Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of years this guy played with, obviously the career RBI leader with 2,259, I believe.
2297.
97, sorry. So I was off a little bit.
She's
selling him short.
I know, right? Sorry, Hank. R.I.P. in peace. But
rip it.
25-time All-Star, and just
yeah. I mean, it's just you go on and on and on. Like this guy was just unreal.
I mean, and no knock on the Rocket. I mean, his stats are ridiculous. I mean, one of the few pitchers to win an MVP award, 7 Cy Youngs, 2 Triple Crowns, 2 World Series, 11 All-Stars, 7 ERA titles.
It's crazy.
I mean, friggin' stupid. Then you got Hank Aaron, won an MVP, 3 Gold Gloves, 25-time All-Star, 2 batting titles, 1 World Series.
And how many home runs?
All-Star for a quarter of a century.
Yeah, quarter of a century.
Yeah, it's insanity. I mean, yeah, and the guy might have hit 755 home runs with a career batting average of 305.
That's it.
3,771 hits because he hit a few long balls, but he also hit.
It's the typical accepted and I think correct argument for this is just it has to be where Roger Clemens ends. It would be hard and borderline irresponsible to take someone that plays 1 out of every 5 days and move him past. Now, and I'm sure you could make the argument a little bit earlier in the bracket. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But at this point, like he can't go past Hank Aaron.
Yeah. No, he there's no way. Absolutely not.
I mean, it would be irresponsible.
Yeah, absolutely. Who caught Hank's record-breaking home run?
Is it Price? I don't know. Is it someone that played Major League Baseball later in his life?
Joe Buck.
Right? Joe Buck. Imagine. If it was Joe
I
Buck,
have
he'd tell
no
us
idea. That's a great.
Every time he did a baseball game, he'd tell you that he caught it. Tom House. No kidding.
Oh.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a cool stat or fact, I should say. That's cool.
Pretty cool. All
I
right.
love
Well,
Tom
Ken
House.
will be our weekly trivia question guy.
I like
That'd
that.
be great. But no, that's awesome. That was great.
Nice.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Sean. I mean, like you said, once every 5 days, and as dominant as the Rocket was, Hank Aaron was just more dominant for more. Like
Yeah, and
it is what it is.
it was easier. I think it worked out for Roger because I think there was like, a couple times he went up against another pitcher, like he went up against Pedro, and so it's
Right.
kind of easier because. But I mean, this is Hank Aaron we're talking about. Like you can't.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy played at least 150 games in like 3/4 of the seasons he played. I mean, that's crazy to be out there every day like that,
Yeah.
playing like that.
Unreal.
With one franchise.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
with one
right.
franchise. Freddie Freeman should have taken notes.
Oh God. I mean, any other team, I would have taken 28 other teams, if other than the Yankees and the freaking Dodgers, dude.
Oh,
I
for
hate
Freddie
it.
Freeman.
Yeah.
I hate them.
We're back on Freeman. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
sorry,
it's cool.
squirrel.
That will be later on. Okay.
It's all good.
I just had
Okay,
to throw that in there real quick.
all
All
good.
right.
Continuing
So
on
we
down
got
the bracket.
Yeah. So Hank Aaron is a Final Four appearance here. This next matchup was kind of interesting for us. We got Ty Cobb against Barry Bonds here.
Two guys who everybody hated their guts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right. Ty Cobb was the most hated player of his era. I mean, Barry Bonds arguably was the most for his era as well, or at least the scapegoat for steroids, like we've talked about numerous times.
Yeah. Two of the most unlikable guys in baseball history.
Yeah. But we went with Barry Bonds here. I mean, however,
I held my nose and made that pick. You just can't, you
Mhm.
can't argue. It's hard to argue that one.
I agree. I mean, I think, again, we saw Barry Bonds play. We didn't get to see Ty Cobb play. So for Ty Cobb, it's just about looking at numbers and reading articles. Barry Bonds, we got to watch and experience it. So, I'm
Right.
sure that played a factor for us as well. But
I just
mean, that
can't
guy-
imagine if you put Barry Bonds in the 1900s, like what the heck that would look like. Like
there's
imagine,
no steroids. There's no steroids back then.
Yeah.
I know, but
Interesting-
still, he was a
interesting point by Ken.
40 guy.
Right.
That's an interesting perspective here from Ken, where
Right.
really the players hated Cobb because he was vicious, whereas the fans just hated Bonds because he was just not likable.
Yeah, it's valid, very valid. But yeah, so that puts us into the Final Four for next week. So we got Ted Williams against Willie Mays, and then we got Hank Aaron against Barry Bonds for the Final Four. Those are going to be some pretty big matchups. I'm actually going to have to do some research on those two and see what we can get going. But
Who are we gonna pick?
I don't know. We've already picked it. But
We'll get
anyway, yeah. So that gives us the bracket for the Elite Eight. So Final Four next week. We're going to move on to rounding.
Do we
third.
have an update on where people stand for the hat?
Oh yes, goodness gracious. Sorry, I do. All right, so Josh falls back a little bit to 53 points. Scott's got 62. Ken jumps up a couple spots. He's got 72 points. Stacy
Because
with
he
9
learned about war.
That's right. It's all about the war. Stacy is in second now with 91, and Morgan picked the Final Four exactly.
Wow.
So he scored 32 points this round with the 8 points apiece, and he jumped up to
Well done.
98 points.
Ooh, wow.
Yep.
Well done.
done.
Yep. So Morgan's got a perfect Final Four bracket right here. All right. So yeah, moving on to rounding third. Our question of the week was best home run derby ever. And I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer to this question.
Oh, there.
There's
so many good
many
ones.
good ones. We got Nick from the SOS podcast and my buddy Mark Williams. They said Pete Alonso last summer and even the summer before.
That was a
Yeah.
good
I
one.
mean, just the way he's been raking, like it's crazy. Billy Chapman, kid I went to college with, he said the Fenway Home Run Derby, and then also mentioned the Josh Hamilton opening round at Yankee Stadium. That was a show and a half. Yeah, he was almost blasting them out of Yankee Stadium there. Yeah, and Steve Bass said that too. Josh Hamilton, 28 home runs in the first round.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah. Stacy's pick was 93 Camden Yards with Ken Griffey Jr. I didn't see that one coming. Hitting it
No,
off
I
the
never
wa-
thought you'd pick a Griffey home run derby. No way.
Never, no. Hitting it off the warehouse in Baltimore. I mean, that's
That
a
was
pretty
awesome.
iconic. It was pretty amazing.
I still remember the swing. I still remember that home run derby for
Mhm.
that moment.
And then Morgan said Bobby Abreu in 05 when he hit 24 home runs in the first round at Comerica. And at that time, that was the most before Josh Hamilton. And like, I remember watching that. And I'm like, and Comerica Park it's got to be the biggest park in the league, right? I mean,
It's up there.
That place is huge.
I was just gonna say, to do it at like a pitcher's park like Comerica too is kind of impressive.
So yeah, it's insane. And then RJ McIntyre said McGuire at Fenway. I mean, he like broke his bat and then hit another like 9 home runs after that. It's like, okay.
Hitting him off the top of the light towers. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the 99 one for me was awesome. Yeah. The Pete Alonso back-to-back ones were super memorable. Josh Hamilton, it's the one that I sneaky forget about in New York with Josh Hamilton, but then you go back and you like rewatch it and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's like hitting them out of the stadium. Yeah.
Just moon bumps, all of them.
Crazy. So my pick was a little bit different. Like I picked 2 because I can. 2019 was
whenever you tell Nick to pick one, he picks 2.
Exactly. Well, Pete Alonso against Vlad Guerrero Jr. But that's not even the matchup that was amazing. It was the 3-round swing off between Jock Peterson and Guerrero to get to the finals.
Yeah.
Where him and Peterson, the final was 40-39. That was the final after the 3-round swing off.
Jesus.
And their 4-minute time. And honestly, like the other one that I really liked was 2015 was the first year they went to the timed home run derby.
Oh yeah.
Like I was very skeptical about how it was going to work because I was like, man, you can't. The home run derby is the home run derby. You can't change it. And then Todd Frazier put on that show, and I was like, okay, like this is, and it was exciting. Like the whole time you're on the edge of your seat watching it, like it was amazing. But yeah,
I didn't love it. I was skeptical, and I was proven wrong. But I don't know. Like
same.
I just remember growing. I mean, it was like, why are we in such a rush? Like everything nowadays needs to get over quicker than what it used to be.
I know.
Baseball games are too long. Home run derby's too long. Everything's too long. We just got to end it now. And it's like, that's kind of the great thing about it.
I know one thing that's not too long.
They just kind of easy. They just kind of, they just went off, and it was just fun to watch it. And it's like, if it took the guy 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes to get 10 outs, then so be it.
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna time everything for? Like, who cares?
Right.
I don't know. I
didn't hit. Hold on, Ken. I didn't hit 1 home run at Hadlock. I hit 2 that game, just to let you know. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah, who's counting, right?
Right. Dude, it was the game of my life, dude, against Deering. It was the last time Deering lost before they won like 98 straight. It's like,
oh God. So the only other home run derby I would add for consideration we haven't already talked about, because all the ones 2019 was amazing. Pete Alonso and Vladdy Jr. And it was cool to have Vladdy Jr. Where his father had won one, and that was cool to have a second generation. But another home run derby I've always loved was the 98 home run derby at Coors. So that's the one that Griffey wasn't going to be in, and then all of a sudden, the last minute, he was in it, ended up winning it. But the distance of some of the home runs these guys hit in this one, I mean, they weren't hitting 20 in a round because they weren't playing with the same ball in the home run derby as they do now. But some of these home runs were absolutely crushed.
Yeah.
There were several that were 450 plus. You had Jim Thome, who hit a bunch. You had Griffey hitting a bunch. You had Paul Merrill. You had Vinny Castilla in his prime.
That's right.
Hitting bombs. It was a lot of fun. You had A-Rod. A-Rod, who was kind of a younger version of A-Rod. He only hit 1 ball under 400 feet. It was amazing some of the distances these guys were hitting them.
So there was a video that came across my Facebook this week, and it was Sammy Sosa at Miller Park.
That was a good one.
What year was that?
Yeah.
97.
So
Or
right before
2000. It might have been 2000.
2002.
2002 might have been.
2002.
It might have been that. Because that was the year that it ended in a tie,
Yeah.
and Bud Selig was caught with his pants down. and he didn't know what to
Oh,
do.
that's
Yeah,
right.
2002.
That makes sense. But the balls he were hitting was like up above the scoreboard in Miller Park. They were going like 520 something feet.
Yeah, and that home run derby, other than him, was a snooze fest.
Yeah.
But he hit a million balls
And there was like 6 over 500 feet. It was
into the far
insane.
reaches of that place.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. Or even that ball that Aaron Judge hit at Marlins Park. The one that like it hit the back side of the roof.
Yeah.
Like what, dude?
I used to love as a kid watching Cecil Fielder put him up on the roof in Detroit, the old
In
stadium.
Detroit.
Stadium.
Yeah. That guy, he was the least athletic looking human you'd ever meet, but God, did he hit a ball a long way.
I heard Prince used to put him up in the second deck at like 12 years old.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As
He'd be
a
like this
teenager, he was
big-ass
taking
Prince
BP,
Fielder,
putting
like
him up in
12
the
years
second
old,
deck.
And he's out there second deck at Tiger Stadium. It's unreal.
Dude, he's been
Imagine,
he's
and then
been
like you have to-
320 pounds since he was 10.
Yeah, and then you have to go to like math class the next day and like tell your kids that you were at Tiger Stadium putting them in the second deck. They wouldn't believe you. There's no social media to prove it either.
Well,
Right.
and imagine being the pitcher the next day at his friggin' like Babe Ruth League game.
It's like literally, yeah.
Goes back to Little League, dude.
He's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this kid?
Oh my god, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't even imagine seeing Prince Fielder in the batter's box of a Little League game, dude. Like, imagine that shit. Be like, yeah, no thanks. I'm just gonna put him on.
I'd be checking birth certificates, man.
Yeah, right.
I am 12.
I'm amazing.
Yeah, goodness gracious. But yeah, so those are all good ones. And like we said, like there's no home run derby that's really been bad. Like they're all so good.
I've always loved the home run derby. It got cheesy there with the timers and all that for a little while, but they fixed it. It's just such a fun event.
Yeah. So you don't like the timers?
I don't like the timer piece of it. I like the
Really?
the 10 outs. If it's not a home run, it's an out. I like the classic. I feel like it got cheesy. I mean, I know why they did it. It got cheesy with the timers, and I think at one point they were rolling a bonus ball out there or something stupid too. And I just like the straight up home run derby, like 10 outs. Let's just swing and hit bombs.
See, the only thing I don't like about the timed is, as a viewer, it's really hard to watch where the home runs land because it's like it's crack, go,
Right.
and like if you're watching this, they had like the regular home run derby, and then ESPN2 was showing like the StatCast, and like you can't watch it. You're just watching the trajectory of the ball flying everywhere, and you can't see what's going on. But I think I like it with the competitive nature of it because it seems like the home run derbies have been close.
Yeah,
I like that aspect of it. But I mean, with the 10 outs, like you can't really sit back and enjoy them as much as you used to. But
yeah, I always loved hearing Chris Berman, back, as you'd watch the cloud of kids like chase the ball to the fence.
Dude, how a kid has not died yet during a home run derby,
I don't get it either.
No,
I
there's
don't get
some
it either.
rockets hitting in some crowds too, and
Dude.
they've never had a major injury.
So
And
if a kid gets a Jose Canseco and it goes over the fence, does it count as a homer?
Yo, one of my favorites is every year, like when we were kids and it was like the just 10 outs, right? Every year, without fail, there'd be that one hardo kid that's like trying to rob a wall scraper. It's like, dude, it's the home run derby. Like, what are you think like this some team's gonna sign you? You're like 10.
Yeah.
Like, just let the ball go over the fence.
He'd be out there with his wristbands and his flip glasses.
Yeah, he's like trying to like rob. It's like, go away, guy.
Yeah, that would totally been me. But anyway.
Got his Griffey cleats on.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, in senior league, we used to have this drill called the pink panty drill, and our coach, that's what it was called. And the whole team had to go and shag fly balls, but everyone had to go after the same fly ball, like as a group of like 20. And the last person to catch a fly ball out of the group had to wear pink panties to the next game. It was amazing.
That doesn't sound like it would fly nowadays. I think there's a few things wrong with that.
Wow.
That the coach would end up like in jail or some shit.
Yeah. Well, no one ever actually did it, but it was just like
right.
It was MMA. It was like MMA and catching fly balls in the same.
Right.
But right now out there, Nick, there are thousands of people that are offended. They don't even know why.
Yes,
They
exactly.
just suddenly got
Thousands. So many.
Thousands.
There's so many watching this podcast, Ken. And then
Thousands.
like thousands.
thousands.
But yeah, man. Like it was, oh my God. I'll always remember that. It was so much fun. He just hit a moonshot fly ball and everyone's just like throwing elbows trying to get to it. And then our 6'7" first baseman would just reach above everybody and catching it.
Yeah, because that's never going to end badly.
No, never. But that's exactly what the kids look like in the home run derby. Anyways.
Yeah, that was nuts.
All right. So we're going to move on to the heading home, the hot stove, and we got some stuff we've sort of kind of already talked about. We got Correa signed with the Twins, 3 for 105. Freeman signs with LA. And then
hate that move. Hate it in so many ways. And all I can say right now is because of the way the players changed the competitive balance tax, Freeman is a Dodger. So that was really the players wanted to amp that up to let the big money teams spend more. They did exactly that. The competitive balance is going to continue to suck, and this is exactly what the players wanted.
Yeah, I hate it. It was weird that they like went and did the Matt Olson trade like before Freeman signed, I think. I mean, unless they knew Freeman wasn't going back.
Well, I think they did. I mean, they definitely
I
knew.
think they'd resigned themselves to the fact he wasn't coming back, which is funny. So you read the articles that came out after the Olsen deal, and you got Freddie Freeman's side saying, "Well, they never even called us."
My guess is Freddie knew. Freddie knew he was going to go chase the money. He just won a title. He spent his whole career there like he wanted to get paid, and he went and chased the money. My guess is he told Atlanta ahead of time that he wasn't coming back, but didn't announce that he wasn't coming back because think about it. If you're the Braves, or if let's say you're the A's, let's say you're the Oakland A's, right? Freddie Freeman announces publicly he's not coming back. You're going to get bent over a barrel for a guy like Matt Olson. Whereas, like, maybe you can go out and pull the trade off and, hey, maybe there's a chance we bring Freddie back as a DH because there's DHs now. And Matt Olson's going to play first, and he's younger, and yada, yada. It's just a little bit easier where you don't get bent over a barrel for the highest possible. So I think Freddie was doing, maybe it's just my conspiracy, I think Freddie was doing the Braves a favor, being like, listen, go make your trade, get the guy you want, and then I'll go about. Because it was like 2 days later, not even, maybe a day and a half later, he put up that Instagram post thanking the whole Braves organization.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
But
it's
I mean,
funny
what do I know? Maybe I'm completely wrong. But
you read the reports out of Freddie's camp, and he's like, they called us like once before the lockout and once afterwards, just saying, "How you doing? What are you thinking?" He's like, "There's no real conversation or negotiation." He turned down 5 years, 135 after the All-Star break from them last year. In the Braves' mind, it was over, but he still felt like they were going to make a run at him. And then you got Chipper Jones jumped into the fray the other day and ripped Freddie Freeman for leaving town the way he did. Because basically taking the stance of, if you wanted to be here so damn bad, you should have picked up the phone. Like, what were you doing? All the pretty girls were gonna court you. You knew that. Somebody lured you away with a big contract. The Braves had to run an organization, so they did exactly that. They found the next best guy out there, and Matt Olson replaced you because you didn't want to commit.
Conforto's not signed yet, Ken, just before, because that's another guy I was thinking of too.
Yeah, no,
lefty bat, so maybe wouldn't fit the Red Sox as much, but Conforto's still out there, and that's going to be. He'll go somewhere and he'll get a nice deal.
I mean, I wouldn't mind. Well, yeah.
No.
But he's a big. I mean, it's if the Sox are going to add a big outfield bat, it's got to be a right-handed bat. It's got to be.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's better than JBJ, I'd have Conforto over JBJ. It's a lefty for a lefty.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But I see what you're saying. You definitely want a right-handed bat in Fenway, but whatever.
Well, and the rumors with Conforto right now is he's going to go back to the Mets because they've got concerns about Marte, and that they're already
oblique.
Yeah, so they're already apparently talking to.
That guy's a mess, dude. Starling Marte's a mess.
It's not even the fact that he's a Mets; it's the goddamn Mets are a mess. It's something about that uniform, that logo, that hat, where it's just like you sign there and you just become a mess.
It's true.
The guy's played like 2 spring training games. He's already got a strained oblique, and Buck's like, yeah, well, we'll see if he's ready for opening day. Like, what?
Yeah.
Already?
That escalated quickly.
Like, it's unbelievable. It's just the Mets, man. The goddamn Mets.
Yeah.
Well, and I actually read an article the other day. It was written by some sort of sports trainer or something like that. And what they're seeing already in spring training is more muscle injuries than they've ever seen before because guys are rushing to get ready. But also during the lockout, what these guys didn't have for 99 days was access to their trainers, the facilities, and the programs.
Right.
So the Major League Baseball is preparing for significantly more injuries this year because of that. And there's even been talk about expanding the rosters, allowing more flexibility, moving players up and down to AAA, because they are expecting significantly more muscle and tissue injuries this year because players lost 99 days of training and season prep because they didn't have their programs or their trainers.
I mean, it's a
And
fair point.
And they're already seeing
Absolutely.
injuries this spring that they haven't seen in the past.
Yep.
At an alarming rate. So it's going to be interesting, what these lineups look like on opening day, because you may have some other, big names fall as we get ready.
Absolutely. It's I think the most, or one of the most head scratching contracts that was signed was that Chris Bryant with Colorado. That's
Makes no sense.
that's 7 and 182. And then they did just extend Ryan McMahon today as well for 6 years. And
Are you saying head scratcher for Chris Bryant or head scratcher for the Rockies?
Yes.
See, to me, I mean,
Bryant gets paid.
Bryant. I'm
Right.
chasing my money. I mean, I won a World Series. I won an MVP.
Right.
I mean, what else? I'm not saying, 2 World Series is greater than 1, 3's better than 2, 4's better than 3. Like, I get all that. But, like, at the end of the day, like, if a team's willing to pay you 7 years for that kind of dough, I'd do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it for anything less than 185.
Yeah, well, you drive a hard bargain.
I do.
I think for Colorado, I guess it's more of a head scratcher on that side. But, like, I don't know. Like, maybe Chris Bryant brings a couple other guys there. Maybe it starts. Maybe I don't know.
So an interesting.
I'm reaching for that. I don't know.
Well, an interesting theory that was floated out there by people in Chris Bryant's camp was that he chose Colorado because he wanted to go somewhere quieter. He'd been in Chicago.
He's from Vegas. He's from Vegas.
Is.
It's kind of home.
He apparently had offers in hand. Yeah, he had offers in hand from Philadelphia and a couple of other teams. Everybody thought he'd go to Philadelphia, and he actually picked Colorado over Philadelphia with an offer that they believe was in the ballpark of being the same. Because, he and Bryce Harper are, good buddies apparently. And everybody, including, I thought he was going to Philadelphia too. That made the most sense of any of those teams. And there's a belief that he shied away from those bigger markets because he's been there, done that, just wants to go play baseball and be left largely alone. Because he doesn't want to be scrutinized like he was before. Whether that's true or not, it's an interesting theory. But for the Rockies to sign Chris Bryant at that kind of money for a guy who's kind of position-less, he's good defensively, but he doesn't really have a permanent home. They're talking about putting him in left field every day. Who knows where he's going to end up playing, but he's not really a guy with a true defined position. Good hitter. Colorado is probably going to help him. But if you were going to sign that kind of a contract with somebody, why didn't you just go keep Trevor Story? Or why didn't you try to retain Arenado when he left?
Trevor Story, the rumor there is that Colorado offered him a similar contract that the Red Sox did. And he wanted a place to win. Trevor Story wanted to win. He wants a better chance at winning a title. I think Colorado did try and keep him. And I think he was just like, I'm not winning here.
So Chris Bryant's like the consolation prize. Because, Colorado's going to stink whether they sign Bryant or not. Like, that's not a good team.
But they got to have some reason for people to come to the park to spend money. And if they don't have a big ticket guy,
right?
You have who? You have Herman Marquez is your best player other than Chris Bryant.
Chuck
Charlie
Blackmon.
Okay.
Chuck Blackmon all day.
But still, like Charlie Blackmon. I understand, but Charlie Blackmon's been there. He's old news.
No,
you know what I mean? Like he's not like a ticket. He's not a ticket draw anymore. Like
I agree.
But I feel like that was maybe the only reason they signed him, or one of the only reasons, because you're right. He's not going there to win, obviously, especially not in that division.
No, could by the end of that contract, could they be good? Maybe. But they're several years away from being a really competitive team. And with a contract like that hanging over their head in a market that's not that big, it's going to be interesting to see what they do next, because they don't have a lot of moves left. They've always had a tough time finding pitching for that ballpark. They've always been able to find hitters, because it kind of draws them in. But I don't know what that organization looks like in a few years, but I don't think Chris Bryant being there or not being there makes any difference.
Yeah. Then, well, we'll stick with the Phillies here. Phillies signed Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. I mean,
Yep. Yeah,
two
Harper got
decent
the
bats.
bats. He wanted Chris Bryant around him. I would take Castellanos over Chris Bryant any day of the week.
And Schwarber.
Yeah,
And
Schwarber.
You can be protected on both sides if you want.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
you
Kyle
still got
Schwarber's
Rhys
another guy
Hoskins
who's just hot and cold.
But still, I mean, it's just another guy that a pitcher has to hit, pitch around.
Yeah.
But
and my guess is he's probably just going to DH for them, and that'll work out really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, because they have Hoskins still at first, right? So he's probably not going to play there.
And the funny thing, they're already talking about using Schwarber in the 1 or 2 spot of that lineup. Put him back at the front because of his OBP. So, really, what Bryce doesn't get protection from him, but he might get a body on base. So at least they've got to think about pitching to him.
Right. We got Seiya Suzuki signed with the Cubs, which I thought was kind of a sleeper. We all thought he was going to come to either Boston or the Giants, and then the Cubs kind of came out of nowhere and signed him.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was kind of a sleeper.
Yeah, and I think Ken's 100% right. If the Phillies can get some pitching, they could make a run.
Well, and if the Phillies can get themselves a trainer that keeps guys healthy, because every year the Phillies seem to have 1 or 2 injuries. It's just
Always.
like the guy just doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Whether it's Harper, whether it's Rhys Hoskins, whether it's Castellanos now or Kyle Schwarber, like they're gonna have. It's just a Philly thing, like it's a Met thing. Like they just always seem to have like one injury. But he's absolutely right. That lineup is lethal, lethal, and they're gonna have to be lethal because the Mets have pitching to talk about guys that can't stay healthy. But again, if the Mets stay healthy, DeGrom and Scherzer, and I mean that's going to be a formidable starting rotation. The Braves, who knows? They just won a World Series. They lost Freddie Freeman. They got some young pitching that isn't going anywhere. But who knows? Like the Braves are an absolute. I don't know what to think of the Braves for this upcoming year. So that's it's definitely, to me, for my money, definitely the best lineup in the division.
Yeah,
not even close.
Right.
I agree. I think if they can stay healthy and get some decent pitching, they're going to give a run for sure.
Yeah, and then really outside of Zach Wheeler, you got a bunch of question marks. You got a guy. Wheeler's a monster. We know that when he's healthy. He's already experiencing some arm things this spring. So, you got Aaron Nola, who you don't know what you're going to get.
Good Aaron Nola's really good, but bad Aaron Nola, boy, is tough to watch.
Oh, he's terrible.
When he starts,
he's so good, it's so bad, like start to start.
Lord, buddy.
Yeah.
Just get it down below the belt. That curveball just tees off when it's hanging. Good Lord.
And then after that, it's a bunch of young guys that you don't really know much about at this point. So it's be interesting.
Rizzo signed with the Yankees. We kind of figured that was going to happen.
But after the contracts that were given out, he signed for really short money.
Yeah. Then we got Eddie Rosario and Kenley Jansen both signed with the Braves. So Rosario re-signed. Kenley Jansen signed a free agent deal with the Braves.
Who's going to close games for the Dodgers without Jansen?
I don't know that. Who's that? I'm so bad.
Gratterall, Brusdar Gratterall.
Yeah, he's the guy that the Sox were supposed to get in Mookie Betts, and then he failed the physical. And then the Sox were like, never mind, we don't want him. And then he went back to LA and he was like totally healthy, throwing like 102 mile an hour sinkers that moved like 6 inches. It's like, all right, sweet. Yeah. We should have had that guy.
Yeah, we didn't need him.
And Dave Roberts today would not commit to a closer. He's like, I'm gonna do it day by day. We don't have that kind of lockdown guy in our bullpen right now.
Blake Treinen's a good one. Yeah. Blake Treinen's a good one.
Yeah.
I could see that too.
Yeah, I can see Dave Roberts starting the season by committee, and then eventually somebody will emerge as the guy. But at the same time, Dave Roberts may decide to pitch him in the first inning too, just because he can. So
right, it wouldn't surprise me if Clayton Kershaw closes.
Yeah, and Gratterall starts. I mean, you never know what you're going to get.
God dang. Yeah, Julio Urias will win 25 games this year, and then he won't pitch in the postseason because he can't win ball games.
Right. Right, because Clayton Kershaw needs to pitch because he's been so good in the playoffs.
I can't stand
regardless of what he said, though, I'm with Ken. I think it's going to be Blake Treinen's going to win out. I mean, that guy's got all-time closer stuff. Closer stuff.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That guy's nasty. And then A little heartwarming story. Zach Greinke goes back to the Royals. Oh, that's cute.
So cute.
Yeah.
I like Zach
Going
Greinke.
to oblivion.
I do too, but he throws about 73 miles an hour now, and probably still the fastest pitcher on the Royals at this point. But
We'll see.
good for you. He goes home.
It's pretty bad that Zach Greinke's probably going to be their ace. I mean, that's just the quality of the rotation now that Zach Greinke's going to be the ace.
Yikes. Luke Voit got traded to the Padres.
Pods, yeah.
Yep. That was interesting, I thought.
Not a bad move. I mean, when
No,
that guy's
it's not.
healthy, he can rake.
But was
But
there
he looks-
something? Was he talking his way out of New York? Or was that like?
I don't know.
I
I don't
thought
know
I-
much. He
Yeah.
may have. He very well may have. My thing with Luke Voit is like his body type, the way he wears no undershirt, unbuttoned top. Like he's supposed to be in pinstripes. And I just saw a picture. I saw a picture of him on Twitter, and he's like wearing it the same way, but it's in like brown, Padres brown. And I'm like, this looks weird. It just like it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's meant to be in pinstripes.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
don't know,
absolutely.
but I don't know if he was talking his way out. I mean, obviously with Rizzo going back there, I don't know what really the place for him is. But
Well, and with his injury history, I mean, if I'm the Yankees, you just can't bank on him. Like, you just don't know that you're going
Right.
to have him for more than 80 games a year. So, you got to be prepared for that. And the Padres are willing to take that chance because, he says he's healthy and whatever was bothering him the last couple of years, he's over. And a healthy Luke Voit is a monster, as we saw in, was it 19
20.
that he had that massive season? Was it 20?
2020. That's the 60
Oh,
game
short-
season. He
the
had like
shortened
24
season.
homers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his kind. He's built for a 60-game season. But I mean, I don't think you haven't had a chance to see Luke Voit for a whole season healthy, except for 2020, which was not a whole season. It's I'll be curious what he can do because if he's healthy, he will be a monster for San Diego.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what's San Diego going to do with Hosmer though? Is Voit playing first base? Is he DHing for you?
Probably,
mean-
probably rotate him through.
Rotate him through and DH is most likely would be my guess.
Because I would say like I wouldn't want to take Hosmer's glove out of first
No,
base. I mean,
absolutely.
that's a Gold Glove first baseman.
I think Voigt's DHing and giving Hosmer a day off every 4 or 5 days.
So I mean, a guy that plays DH only DH, like you probably a decent way of keeping him healthy.
Yeah.
So it might work.
And then the last thing I got, unless you guys got something else, the Cincinnati Reds are fire sailing everyone except for Luis Castillo and Joey Votto still there. And Joey Votto is going to retire a Red unless he gets traded at the deadline to a contender. But yeah, the Reds just was like, here, anybody take anybody. Like Winker, you're an all-star, you're gone. They
Isn't
lost
that the cool thing?
Castellanos, like,
Isn't that so cool though? It's like, hey, we just got a second baseman that won National League Rookie of the Year. We got some good young players, so we're just going to trade away the rest of the good guys. So like now,
Yeah.
poor Jonathan India is now stuck in Cincinnati.
right,
Right?
with no
Like,
one.
I mean, you have a guy that just won the National League Rookie of the Year, and it was not a fluke.
I
Like
know.
he had a really good rookie
Right.
season.
No, he was a stud.
And now, like, he's the
Yeah.
only guy in your lineup.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at the Cincinnati Reds are doing what the Cincinnati Reds do. They developed a few good players and spun them all off. The Oakland Athletics are doing what the Oakland Athletics do, which is why I think they're a trash organization. Developed a few players, spun them all off. Chapman's gone, Olsen's gone. That team's going to be a disaster again.
I
Yeah,
can't name
no.
one person on the Oakland A's right now. I'm going to
No,
be
I
you can.
completely.
Yes, you can. Sean Manea, Frankie.
Oh yeah,
Montas.
that's right. You still
Yeah,
got-
but they're
you
going to
could.
be on the Yankees in a week,
But they're not.
and then Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy.
Yeah.
But that's,
Great name. Sean Murphy.
Yeah,
it's going to be a AAA roster again. I mean,
Yeah.
the A's are doing what the A's do. They bring up a bunch of minor leaguers, a few of them stick, they spin them off, they do it again.
goodness gracious.
It's just it
Brutal.
is what they do. But then in the meantime, when you look around at what like the Blue Jays have done this year, they've taken some hits and lost some players, but that roster, that lineup is loaded.
That lineup
I-
is going to mash. That
I
lineup's
don't
gonna
want to see
mash.
Toronto. I don't want to see them at all.
Yeah,
I'll tell you this. If and when I go to Red Sox games this summer, I kind of hope it's against Toronto. I'd love to see that lineup in person. Just mash. They just
Yeah.
mash.
Don't give me
if that
Yankees
ti-
tickets. Give me Blue Jays tickets.
Yeah. If that lineup stays healthy, if those guys stay healthy, that's going to be a fun lineup to watch night in and night out.
Oh my goodness. That home run Vlad Guerrero hit yesterday, I
Oh.
don't think it's landed yet.
No, I agree.
That
And
was absolutely
he's
teed off.
dropped. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
He dropped like
Training
22
strength.
pounds.
Yeah, looks great.
Crazy.
Yeah, they
And
said
his ass is still a
you know,
wagon too. He lost no weight off that ass. It was
No,
just all
no,
in front of
he's-
his belly.
just how he's built.
He's
I mean,
still got
but,
that big ass.
but no, I mean, they say he's in the best shape of his career. He actually was working with a trainer every single
Yep.
day, even through the lockout. And he's mad last year. They missed it by a game. He says, he was saying, I'll never let that happen again.
And
He's
he's got
awesome. I
that
love him.
MVP hanging over his head too, where he was really
Oh,
close to that
man.
as well. So like he's got some fire underneath that cake of his.
I mean, if Ohtani didn't pitch, that was Vlad's all day
All
because
day.
his numbers were
Yeah, I agree.
gross.
Mhm.
I agree.
Gross.
Yeah. You think they were inflated a little bit with with playing half the year in Buffalo though?
No.
Nah.
You don't think
No,
so?
because if he was hitting like wall scraper home runs, I'd say yeah, but not a single ball he hits isn't 25 rows deep. I mean,
It's true.
that he absolutely rakes and mashes.
I'm not
gotta be,
trying to take anything away from him, but it was just
no, but he's like this generation's Manny Ramirez. I mean, he hits power to all fields, average. I mean, there's just getting that guy out's a nightmare.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
all right. Do you guys have anything else on the free agent market or any news?
No, that was a
before
long
we
one.
Move
No.
on.
No, there was a pretty good flurry of action, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
all the big names have found a home. Now it's on to getting ready for the season.
Yep. So literally just Conforto and just a couple of odds and ends here. But yeah. So next week, next Monday, we are going to be on with another crossover episode with the SOS podcast, where we are going to go over our preseason picks. So we will go over our picks for division winners, World Series predictions, Rookie of the Year, MVP, Cy Young, Manager of the Year, Bat Boy of the Year, all those awards. That will be next week with the SOS podcast. So you guys can join us then. It'll be regular time, 8:00. And that should be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, those guys are a
Absolutely.
lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So that does it for me. Anything else before we go?
No, I'm
That's
good.
it.
All
Just-
right.
Remember the war.
That's right. All about the
All
war,
about
baby.
war.
Yeah.
We'll see
Thursday
you
night.
on Thursday.
Thursday night for those of you in the fantasy. We get the draft Thursday at 7.
Be a lot of fun.
All right. We'll
All right,
see you
boys.
guys next Monday.
All right.